YouTube, how are we? Today we're going to just do a nice sit down, relaxed video talking about the differences, the positives and the negatives, and how to go about meal planning and a style of calorie counting known as If It Fits Your Macros. So we're going to hop straight into this video, and we're going to start off by simply just defining what those two different nutritional methods are. So we've got meal planning, which I would define as having set meals throughout the day that fit into your required calories and also macros if you're tracking those as well. And then if we look at IIFYM, which is probably the abbreviation that you've seen in the title of this video. So if you don't already know, that simply stands for If It Fits Your Macros. This kind of method involves most likely downloading some kind of an app. So most popular one is probably MyFitnessPal. And as you go throughout the day, you'll scan your foods or manually input them into the app, which will have your calorie and macro targets already implemented into the app. So it will start to decrease that number as you input those foods. So say you've had a bowl of pasta that was 400 calories and you're eating 2,000 calories each day. You'll then be able to see that your total left for the day is 1,600 calories, and it will just keep on taking off the numbers as you eat and input more foods. So let's look at the positives for both of these styles of nutrition. So if we start with the meal plan approach, the first one is quite simply that it takes the stress out of food as a whole. So whether that's the eating of it or the preparing or just the overall planning of it. This is particularly useful if you're in some kind of a stricter phase like a cut, but also if you're in maybe something like a bulk like myself, where calories are pretty high and it's very easy for you to undereat if you've not got some sort of a set plan. That then takes me on to the point of it's a lot less likely that you're going to overeat or undereat if you've got your meals prepped and planned for the day. Really, if you calculated everything correctly, the only way that you're going to over or undereat when following a meal plan is if you choose to go off plan. One thing that meal planning also does is makes food shopping a lot easier, because you'll have your plan for the week, whether that's one plan that you're going to follow each day or multiple plans that you're going to switch between and rotate. You'll know exactly what you need to be buying from the shops. So again, it also helps you to not make unnecessary purchases, either making you overeat if you're cutting, or simply just cutting down on food wastage. The fourth one, and this is something that I have personally found, is that through meal planning, I find it a lot easier to get my macros in, so vitamins and minerals, through whole fruits and veg. I find that when I follow more of an If It Fits Your Macros approach, it's a lot easier for me to take the stance of, well, I can fit this cake in, which is equal to, you know, the same amount of calories as, say, this banana. So of course I'm most likely going to choose the cake. So it's a lot easier to kind of plan out your macros, so whole fruits and veg, and I find it a lot easier to get at least 5 servings of those in a day if I'm meal planning. So the positives to If It Fits Your Macros. So the first one is quite simply it gives you a lot more freedom with food. You're not tied down to eating the same meals each day. If you fancy something completely different, then you can do that, and all you've got to do is input it into the app. That then takes me into the point of it makes eating out a lot easier, because if someone says, hey, do you want to go and grab a coffee? It's far easier for you to say, yeah, sure, go out, scan that coffee, maybe you have cake while you're there, you can input that slice of cake into the app, as opposed to being on a meal plan where you feel like I've got to either take the food with me, or in order to go out, I've got to come off plan, and then that might make things a little bit more complicated for you. And then finally, If It Fits Your Macros is great if you're somebody who likes to eat different things every day. I'm quite set in my personal routine in that a lot of the meals that I eat are similar each day. So for me personally, this has never been a problem, but I know that some people really kind of crave variety in foods each day, which is completely fair enough. And in that case, If It Fits Your Macros might make things a little bit less complicated than a meal plan. So some negatives with meal planning. So really this is kind of going to be the opposite to the positives that you get from If It Fits Your Macros. So really meal planning kind of takes away that amount of freedom that you have. So going back to that positive of If It Fits Your Macros, someone says, hey, do you want to go out and get a coffee and some cake? With meal planning, like I say, that's going to make things a little bit more complicated, because really you've got two choices. You can either say, yes, I'll come out, but I'm not going to be able to have the, coffee or cake, and you maybe even got to take your own food. Or you can say, yes, go and have that coffee and cake, but then you've got to work out what calories you've had whilst you've been out and where to take that away from in the meal plan. And then simply that lack of variety. You can have a different meal plan, for each day, so just have 7 meal plans that you rotate through, but it can make things a little bit more complicated. I find that the less or the least amount of meal plans that you have and that you rotate through, the easier it does make things. So if you're somebody who does crave a lot of variety each day, meal planning could be a little bit more complicated. So some negatives to if it fits your macros. The first one for me, and this is one that I see very often, is it's far too easy to over or under eat. Now most of the time I see this from the point of view of people that are cutting, so trying to lose weight and kind of drop body fat. They get very excited when they wake up in the morning and they find that they've got a fresh set of calories to eat for the day. So they'll have a huge breakfast, maybe a pretty big lunch, and then come dinner time, they've basically got nothing left. And they've got two options. They can either have a lettuce leaf for dinner, or they overeat. And normally it's the overeating option. So really you've got to have quite a lot. You've got to be firm with yourself, and you've got to know, really, yes, I've got these 2,000 calories for the day, but maybe it's better if actually I set calorie targets for each meal. So maybe 500 calories for breakfast, lunch and dinner, which then takes you to 1,500 calories. If you've got a 2,000 calorie goal, you've then got an extra 500 calories that you can put towards maybe some snacks throughout the day as well. And then the other negative that I came up with, which kind of goes against what I said about meal planning helping me to get in things like fresh fruit and veg. With if it fits your macros, it's very easy to think, well, I've got 200 calories here, should I have that slice of cake, or should I have my 5th serving of fruit or veg? You're probably going to go for the cake. And from a physique point of view, ultimately they're both 200 calories, so you might wake up in the morning and you might be lighter, which is great if that's your weight loss goal. That's brilliant, and there is room for that, but we also have to think about health as well, and sometimes picking the vitamins and minerals is going to be the better option. So on to when I personally use these two for myself. So throughout the whole of 2021, I've basically been meal planning. So this started at the beginning of the year when I entered a cut, and I meal planned for that because I found in the past when I've done cuts, it's a lot easier for me to do meal plans as opposed to an if it fits your macros approach. And when I came out of my cut, I think I'd been cutting for like just under 20 weeks. I kind of fell in love with the ease and the simplicity of meal planning, and I decided that actually I wanted to take that into my bulk, but just with a less strict approach. So I suppose to a certain extent you could say that right now I'm kind of going with the best of both worlds. Because I do also incorporate some if it fits your macros in there as well. Because I'm bulking, things don't have to be as strict in terms of food. There are times, particularly at the weekend on a Saturday, where I want to put my feet up, maybe enjoy some food with some friends or family, and I don't want to have to think about being on plan. And I've kind of at the point where with my bulking calories, I've got them set so perfectly that kind of one meal off maybe at the weekend and maybe one meal off during the week at some point doesn't really bring any negative effects for me. So when it comes to that, what I'll typically do, if it's a meal where I'm not bothered about the calories at all and it's just not a focus, then obviously it doesn't matter. I just come off the meal plan, eat the off-plan food, and then get back on it the next day. Some days during the week, like I say, I might get invited out somewhere, or maybe like a client brings in like a cake or something. I don't know, just if it's been their birthday, there's been times where a client's bought me a slice of cake. Obviously, I'm not going to be like, I'm not having the cake. Of course, I'm going to take that cake because I'm human and I like cake. So typically, what I'll do is I'll kind of just average out how many calories I think that slice of cake is. So let's say it's 250, and then I'll pick something out of the meal plan that's around about 250 and just swap it out for that. So really at the minute, yes, there's a heavy meal planning approach, maybe 80 to 90% of it during the week. but there's that sort of 10-20% where I do allow myself some freedom and more of an if it fits your macros approach. So clients, where does this leave me with them? Really, this is such a personal choice. I get every single client that comes on board, when they fill in their client profile form initially, they'll give me quite a lot of detail into their food habits, nutrition habits, and the first week, regardless of what they've said in their client profile form, during the first week, 99% of people will fill in a food diary, and from there I'm able to gauge a better understanding of what help they need, and by talking to them as well, I'm able to gauge an understanding into what sort of an approach is gonna work best for them. And really it can just be anything, like the smallest thing from like improving meal timings, increasing fruit and veg intake, decreasing portion sizes, to something incredibly strict if I've had a client come on board and essentially the goal is to get absolutely shredded. It might be best for us to take that food diary and make it fit the desired calories and essentially have it as planned meals. So really it can be anywhere between those two extremes, and it just depends on the person, and ultimately that's what you've got to take from this video. You know the pros and cons now, you know what each one involves, and really it's about making that decision for yourself. Maybe you have one style that you use during a cut and one style that you use during a bulk, or maybe a little bit like I'm doing at the moment, you kind of do the best of both worlds. So lastly, you've made your decision. You have decided that you want to do if it fits your macros, so how do you go about this? And then the same with meal planning. Maybe you've decided that's how you want to go about it. How do you do it? So let's start with if it fits your macros. Personally, I've tried a lot of different apps and calorie counters over the years for personal use and also for client use. I've found MyFitnessPal to be the best, just from the ease of use, so being able to have it on your phone, being able to scan barcodes and input foods. I've just found it the easiest to use. So if this is the app that you choose to go with, what's going to happen is you're going to have to create an account. You can have a paid version. Personally, I've never used that. I've been using that app for I think about 8 years now, which is scary. And I've never once paid for it. The free version is absolutely fine. This is going to ask you a series of questions to give you calories and macros to follow. If you're doing this alone, if you don't have a coach, for example, then chances are you're just going to have to follow the calories that they give you because you might not know any better. If you've got a coach or a PT, and this is what I do with my clients, is I'll get them to download the app. I'll tell them to throw in any random data that they want to create that account. Doesn't matter. They could be 5'4" and I could tell them to put in 6'5". Does not matter, because whatever calories it gives them, I'm not going to get them to follow. I will calculate it all for them. And then in their settings, they can go in and they can input the data that I've given them, and then they're all ready to go. Meal planning. There are two ways that you can go about this. You can either use something like MyFitnessPal to input your foods, get it all so that it's all adding up to the right numbers, and then take screenshots of that, and then you've got your meal plan ready to go. What I personally do when I'm creating meal plans, either for myself or more importantly for clients, is actually just have a ton of spreadsheets. This way it's all saved. Obviously, if you put it into MyFitnessPal, as the weeks go on, it's going to get backlogged and you're not going to be able to find it as easily. So I put it all onto spreadsheets, and then I can also take out foods, put in new foods, and send that over to them, and then it's all ready to go. So they're the two different options and how to go about creating them. Hopefully that's given you a bit more of an understanding, a nice little brief guide on if it fits your macros versus meal plans. Ultimately, just like most things in fitness, it's a case of what works best for you. Just because your best friend is meal planning and sticking to it 7 days a week doesn't necessarily mean that that is going to be the best option for you. Have a go at maybe if it fits your macros, and then if that doesn't work, have a go at meal planning, or maybe just have a go at creating sort of a plan where it's the best of both worlds. If you enjoyed this video and you found it useful, please give it a like, and as always, I'll see you all in the next one.